So,
Fantastic.
little bit of background.
Yeah.
This won the Grand Jury Award at last year's South by Southwest Festival, and it's the first feature by writer, director, and actor Jim Cummings, and it's based off his own short film from 2016, and the short is pretty much the same as the film's opening scene, and that scene is a showstopper.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's one of those scenes that you watch and you immediately go, this guy is worth paying attention to.
Yeah. So, similarly, when we were talking about Sunset earlier, I was kind of like, right, who is he and what else can I watch that he's been in? He's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's the way that this is a trigger point for the entire rest of the film. And what happens is Jim Arnaud, the character played by Jim Cummings, is giving a eulogy at his mother's funeral, and it becomes a bit of an incident. He has this very public breakdown, and what starts as a rambling speech about his mother becomes sidetracked with him constantly talking about himself. He brings up his dyslexia and says how much of a terrible son he is, and then the whole thing ends with this disastrous attempt to perform his mother's favorite song, which is Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen, and trying to play it on his daughter's portable pink stereo. And all of this is shot in a single unbroken take, which lasts about 10 minutes. And it's slowly zooming in, and you become more and more a part of his own discomfort. And I think that it's a really bold step to try and mix comedy and tragedy in that way. And I think the film does it beautifully because it recognizes that there is this absurdity to grief because it is such an extreme emotion that sometimes it can make us weird people and we do weird things. And so we see this character lose his grip on normalcy, and that from that scene on, it's just a downward spiral. He becomes more and more self-obsessed and erratic and prone to outbursts. He's a police officer and he refuses to take time off to grieve. But then on shift, some guy throws soup at him and suddenly he's tackling a homeless man to the ground, which dive bombs his career. And he's also going through a divorce, and his own daughter doesn't want to spend time with him. She's completely disconnected. He's completely lost. And the whole film is just him sort of wandering from outburst to outburst. And each of these set pieces does find that mix of comedy and tragedy. There's a great scene where he's meeting with the daughter's teacher and he finds out that she's a problem child. And so he completely freaks out and starts gripping this small child's desk and walking around with it in his hands. It's like this spectacle of grief. And I think Jim Cummings is so good in this because he is also the writer and director, that he really understands the tone and he can deliver a performance that's so in tune with the rest of the film. So it's a very strong and cohesive vision. And as well, he's got this slightly goofy 70s style mustache, which makes you think that he's going to be the parody of like the useless donut scoffing cop. But when you see him cry, it's like a wound being opened up, and it's like all this pain pours out, and he cries by clenching his teeth and just wincing like he's holding back a scream. And it's just such an extreme suppression of emotion. And he is trying to be good and he wants to be good. And he has friends that care deeply about him, like his partner, played by Nick Ann Robinson. And the film, what I really like about this film is that very delicate balance between having empathy for the character and also having a healthy suspicion of him, because it's not naive to the fact that an audience is watching a police officer who is not in control of his emotions and acting erratically and knowing that he has so much power over people. And it also is aware of the conversations about, privilege, that he can, act out in such a huge way in public, but people are so tolerant of him. And I think it does take some narrative risks that will maybe not win everybody over.
Yeah.
But what I really, really appreciated was seeing a film that allowed itself to be that complex.
Definitely.
And to be that sort of conflicted about itself.
Just never knew what he was going to do next. It kind of kept you really sort of on the edge of your seat, really, because he was so kind of sporadic and disconnected that it was kind of like, I loved that. It's the tension that created for him as a character, and the narrative of the film I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, and it just withholds making any clear judgment about him,
which
is really smart.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what he does next. all three, or just one of the things, writing, directing, or being in something.
Yeah.
Well, Jim Cummings.
Jim Cummings, which is
Awesome.
not the guy who voiced Winnie the Pooh, by the way. This is a completely different Jim Cummings.